the world's most famous road race drew an entire nation into its magic circle. 1,600 kilometers from Brescia to Rome and back again to Brescia, through the city centers via country roads and passes. For one day, life came to a standstill in Italy. There was only one happening, the Mille Miglia. 60 years ago, on March 26, 1927, the cars got off their mark for the first time ever. And for the next 30 years, the Mille Miglia exerted a considerable influence on the construction of fast, reliable touring cars and sports cars throughout the world, even those powered by wood gas. Many firms constructed special vehicles just for this race. Many gave certain models the name Mille Miglia. Many owe their reputation to a Mille Miglia success. Out front in the first position, the Italian models Alfa Romeo and Ferrari, but also BMW and Porsche. However, the Mille Miglia not only bestowed Italy with advertising for the products of its automobile industry, 21 Italian victories compared with 3 foreign victories, nearly all of which were German overall wins. Italy's tourist trade profited from the event. Regions which would normally have remained unfrequented were discovered and revisited. And this is the slant which we want to give in this film. It's true that our interest ought to be focused on the rarities on wheels of car construction, but within the framework of the rewarding cultural centers of the country which are touched by the prescribed race route. The last winner of the real Mille Miglia was Piero Taruffi. But he had no idea that this was to be the very last race. 25 kilometers before the finish line, the Marquis de Portago had a fatal accident and took the lives of 11 spectators with him. Thereafter, the race was banned. Our Mille Miglia Jubilee starts in front of the highly interesting Alfa Romeo Museum in Arese near Milan. The special chassis on the car of Englishman Peter Agg helps us to take special motion shots. Alfa maintains, as does BMW, a kind of museum on wheels. These are wonderfully restored old-timers in working order, which are brought out on occasions such as the Mille Miglia. And of course, Alfa Romeo has a special relationship to the Mille Miglia. It won exactly half of all the races ever held. Alfa has the most successful record, with 11 victories, followed by Ferrari with 8, Mercedes-Benz with 2, and OM, BMW, and Lancia, each with 1 overall triumph. Brescia's Piazza Vittoria, the official scrutineering of the vehicles on the morning of the day of the race. Let's take a look at some of the famous pre-war models. The OM, constructed in Brescia, won the first 3 prizes in 1927. This is a 2-liter model with 85 horsepower from the year 1928, 6th in the Tourist Trophy.
Attenzione prego, dottor Molari al tavolo verifiche. Dottor Molari al tavolo verifiche. Attenzione prego.
A Bugatti T35C, a 2-liter 8-cylinder compressor.
Il signor Bonetto di 4 ruote è desiderato presso il tavolo verifiche.
An Alfa Romeo. Rudolf Caracciola twice competed in the Mille Miglia with the Mercedes SSK. First together with Christian Werner, who in his turn had won the 24 Targa Florio. He came in 6th and was class winner in 1930. In 1931, he won together with his co-driver, Sebastian. It is true that the 7-liter compressor engine provided sufficient power, but this huge contraption was extremely difficult to drive.
Welcher Wagen ist das jetzt eigentlich? Vergangenheit.
A 2.6-liter Alfa Romeo Monza of the Scuderia Ferrari 1934.
Oh, mamma mia.
MG very successfully took part in the Mille Miglia. In 1933, the 2K3 Magnets covered a double victory in the 1100 class. In 1934, MG came in second with Count Lurani at the wheel. The Delahai 135 MS occupied the fourth position in the overall class under René Dreyfus in 1937. A model made out of 6.4-liter Talbot Lagos from the year 1937. What is interesting about the car is the electric pre-select gears, almost a kind of automatic. Hello, Mr. Feierabend. The well-known automobile restorer is sitting here in an ordinary BMW 328. It has a 6-cylinder, 2-liter motor with 80 horsepower and was the most popular and most successful mass-produced sports car. In the 1940 Mille Miglia, BMW entered 5 factory cars, 2 coupes, and 3 spiders. This car came in third in the overall placing with Brudis Röse. It is common knowledge that Huschke von Hanstein and Walter Bäumer won with the coupe. Several of the old cracks were there too. Luigi Villoresi, he won in 1951. Sterling Moss holds with 10 hours, 7 minutes, and 48 seconds the never-again challenged record. Olivier Jean de Bien won Le Mans 4 times and the GT group of the Mille Miglia in a Ferrari twice. In 1955, he came in second in a Mercedes. And then there's Formula One world champion Phil Hill. He only knows the Storica.
A lot of old-timer business in the United States, isn't that true?
Restoration business. Restoration business.
Yes?
Yeah.
And how does it work?
Very well. We've been at it for many years.
Much work to do?
We're swamped. We're just so busy we don't know what to do.
Oh, well, good for you. Are you coming over only for the big events? I saw you at the Monte Carlo. I saw you 3 times here now. Are you doing different races also in Europe?
No, I don't have time. I'm too busy at home. And my family and the kids in school and all that, it's just, there isn't enough time to do them all.
So it is the Mille Miglia?
Yes, the Mille Miglia, and let's see, I write for Road and Track.
Yes, I know.
And so every now and then something comes along that
so
has to do with that.
It's a job as well.
That's right.
As a fun, and it is fun, isn't it?
It is, oh, absolutely.
You're driving a Disco Volante. What kind of a car is that, by the way?
It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder Alfa of 1953, and it's an extraordinary looking thing. You know,
Yes.
it looks like a Disco Volante. It looks like a flying saucer.
Yes, people say that this car is really hard to drive because it goes off the street a little bit, and
Doesn't
if
go
you
that
really
fast,
go
no.
fast a bit.
The only thing that's really good about it is with almost everyone else here, you have a tremendous worry about running over people's feet because they're so close, you understand?
Yes.
My car, I get them in the knees before I run over the feet, so it takes a big worry off your mind.
What do you think about this a little bit foolish thing here, which is fantastic, I know, but don't you think people go crazy
I hope they can keep it just a little bit foolish,
Yeah.
and not ruin it by going absolutely crazy and having an accident or something like that. You know, that would be a shame.
So do you do it quiet and easy?
Yeah, with you know, not so easy that it would be boring, but...
Oh, sure. Okay, thanks a lot.
Several people were not in too much of a hurry to leave the start ramp in the Via Re Buffone. It is 8:48 p.m. on Thursday, May 21st, 1987, when the MAGS with the SSK rolls off the starting ramp. The third SSK of ASC Sports President Bertold Ruckwerth has problems this time with the transmission. This was the oldest competitor, an Alfa RLSS from 1924. 3 years later, this car came in 7th in the first Mille Miglia. And here we have the very beautiful Delage D8S from 1932. Burkhard von Schenk with his Delahai 135 MS, third in Le Mans in 1937. And Count Dönhoff Manni-Rümbach with the previously shown Talbot Lago. The 328 BMW model landed a triple-class triumph in 1938, as did the Isetta, not one of BMW's, but the original with the 302-stroke engine. In 1955, it finished as a class winner and was 2 kilometers faster than the 1927 winner with its average speed of 79.3 kilometers an hour. Ferrara, the destination of the first stage, which was reached late in the evening. This is a typical rigged-up car from the year 1948. It is called the Alfa Maserati Preti and was in the race in 1949 with Giorgio Scarlatti at the wheel. Ferrara is the first town which we want to bring a little closer to you. Not in order to completely satisfy your thirst for culture, but in order to arouse your curiosity. It's highly rewarding. The town is dominated by the Castello of the Este family. The Castello was built in order to counter a civil uprising against the ducal house. That was in 1385. But very soon the dukes and the citizens had made up their differences, and by means of wise and social politics, the welfare of the town and of the region grew. Thus, the Elster family were able to afford one of the most splendid royal households of the highest cultural standing in all of Italy. It is true that the Elster family was famous for their cannon construction, but they very cleverly kept their land out of most of the disorders of war during the unsettled Renaissance era. Thus, art, literature, and music flourished in Ferrara. The cannons were not used, but were exported. Life was good in Ferrara. This was also reflected in the cuisine. And if you ever want to savor typical specialities, the Romantica is much to be recommended, but not even the Michelin Guide has yet discovered it. But let's continue with the Mille Miglia, now in glorious sunshine. The Zagato company was already around in 1931. It made the body for the Alfa Romeo 1750. A Bugatti T35C from 1929. At the border between Italy and what's probably the oldest republic in the world, San Marino. It would have been a simple task to follow this Fiat Balile torpedo, but all sorts of things were in the way. A 3-liter Maserati 8C, and one of the little post-war cars on a Fiat basis. The Giro d'Italia was not yet planned, and this is why cyclists were treated with contempt on this day. The organizers took great pains to make sure that the only cars they allowed to start were the ones which had actually been there at the real Mille Miglia. In the case of this 52 Cunningham, they made an exception. It is true that this strange American car made its mark at Le Mans, but never at the Mille Miglia. A Healy Silverstone. The precision of the fuel gauges in the Asca apparently leaves a lot to be desired. But that's what wooden cooking spoons are for. Between Cattolica and Pesaro, the route winds along one of the rare steep cliffs of the Adriatic. This Bugatti T55 was driven by Achille Vazzi in 1932. The Delahaye Le Mans was flown in from Argentina, especially for the occasion. A 2.3-liter Alfa MM from 1938. A 1750 GS Alfa from 1930, and the BMW 328 MM. This is a 1930 compressor OM, followed by a flourish of competing Alphas. Now please don't laugh, but the Topolinos were, of course, equally part of the Mille Miglia scene, as was the 1750 SS from Alfa Romeo, 1929. The first Topolino was built in the year 1938. The following one is from 1953. The 2-liter Maserati AG GCS was virtually the most successful sports car in its class. And a very rare Alfa Barchetta with a Carrero body from 1954. The English were always denied a sweeping success in the Mille Miglia, be it with the Jaguar C or with the D-Type. A Fiat V8 Vignale. And the Porsche 550, the most successful car of the 1500 class since 1953. Tazio Nuvolare won the Grand Prize of Belgium in 1933 with this Maserati 3-liter 8-cylinder. A 1952 Ferrari Vignale. And a 1953 Maserati Scaglietti. The Jaguar D really won everything except for the Mille Miglia. We now follow this 1939 Alfa Romeo 2500 6C into Pesaro, the birthplace of Gioacchino Rossini, which we want to stroll through once again. From the Palazzo Ducale to the Rossini Theater. The old Castello, not quite suitable as an overnight stay. It's the prison. The Villa Caprile. And the Villa Imperiale. This Alfa Romeo Monzo has an adventurous past behind it. After taking part 3 times in the Mille Miglia, it came to Eritrea in 1936 and then via India to the USA. In the meantime, we have reached Ancona. This Maserati was overall 6th and class winner in 1954. And what does an out-of-work racing director do? He takes part in old-timer events. Renault's Claude Sage with a Ferrari. Incidentally, Mauro Foggiari was there too. At present, he is building up the Chrysler Lamborghini Formula One team. A 1953 Alfa Romeo 3-liter. It's impossible to lose one's way in the Mille Miglia. A Porsche 550 and a Ferrari 212, which won the Grand Prize of Porto in 1952. Of course, in the Miglia, the cars did not necessarily pass through all the town centers. Just imagine a Jaguar D driving at full speed. Or the 300 SL of Prince Metternich. Or the 1955 3-liter Maserati. The town of Macerata was on the route from 1927 to 1936. The 328mm again. A stone's throw away from the historical route, Assisi is the town of St. Francis. The organizers are experts at repeatedly including such cultural centers in the race route, and even more at changing them from one year to the next. Last time, the checkpoint was in neighboring Perugia. This year, it is directly in front of the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. The town of Assisi already existed at the time of the Etruscans. It was expanded by the Romans, and finally, from the 13th century on, it was one of the intellectual and spiritual centers of Italy. Today it presents itself in its medieval state, and the town center is magnificent. In the background, once again, the Pilgrimage Church, which incidentally was built by the German architect Jacobus between 1228 and 1273. Everyone was given a little souvenir present. At the end of the occasion, everyone dragged a whole trunk full of souvenirs around with them, if the car happened to have one. Up in the piazza, they viewed the architecture of the Romans. The facade of the magnificent Minerva temple serves a church as a portico. Rome, the destination of the second stage and the turning point. The drivers kept to the northern periphery. The Eternal City was, so to speak, only touched at its edge. Again, hundreds of spectators, but the competitors had gotten used to that. And those who had already taken part in the real Mille Miglia could hardly tell any difference. Back then, things had been slightly more hectic, collecting a stamp and on again immediately. In the Storica, one was able, even if only briefly, to take a nap. One could cut such a good figure on the ramp with number 10, a 1927 Alfa 1506C. Here we have two gentlemen, Mr. Boykers and Mr. Twaits, who have come from the Netherlands with the 1955 HWM. The enormous 32 Delage of Monsieur Semain. And now Mr. Sinkel and Mr. Knapp from Düsseldorf with the BMW 328. The organizer had no difficulty filling this Jubilee Mille Miglia. More than 500 drivers wanted to take part. More than 200 had to be turned away. Despite this fact, the cars had literally to be squeezed into the Parc Fermé.
How are you?
All right,
Oh, balls.
The start of the third lap, heading north. Now we head to Via Viterbo, Radicofani, passing Siena in the direction of Florence. That is to say, from south to north, through Tuscany. Here comes the famous 1929 Mercedes SSK, the previous year's winner. The MG Magnet. The Lago Talbot. And the 1937 Delahaye. A couple of Alphas. And the BMW 328, also from 1937. Initially, we see Michelangelo's David with his back turned to us, but he is, in fact, indeed looking down on his hometown of Florence. The Piazza Michelangelo is plainly and simply the best vantage point from which to enjoy a panoramic view of the Arno city. The cathedral with the famous Dome of Brunellesco. the Ponte Vecchio, and the Palazzo Vecchio by the Piazza della Signoria. Two passes rise up behind Florence, the Futa and the Raticosa. They used to be a problem to cross in the old days. Here comes Sterling Moss with the Aston Martin DBZ, and there are a whole crowd of US boys who flew across the Atlantic for the race. For instance, this 57 Ferrari 250 TR. This is Ascari's winning car from 1954, the Lancia D24, driven by Gino Munaron, who won the 2-liter class in 1957. Another famous driver, Olivier Jean de Bien, drove this 250 GT Ferrari to the 3rd overall place in 1957. A successful Fiat Baila as a streamlined coupe, and behind it, a car which was driven by Jean de Bien, also to the 1st place in Le Mans, the Ferrari 625 CM. Up on the Futa Pass, the memorial plaque for the 4-time Mille Miglia winner, Clemente Biondetti. A Bentley 4.5-liter Le Mans 1928 model. Winner in 1929 in Le Mans. An Allard 1953. And the 2nd place car from 1940, the Alfa 2.5-liter 6C. The next city is Bologna. How about a sip of wine? Typical. When we arrive, there's nothing left. From Bologna, the route continues in the direction of Via Miglia, via Modena, Parma, and Cremona. A truly excellent sporting achievement was made by this mother and daughter team from Germany, who brought the enormously big Mercedes SS dashingly over the finish line. We took a shortcut from Modena on the motorway up to Mantua in order to be able to behold this remarkable town before the arrival of the cars. This town also looks back on a turbulent past. The Bonacolsi family reigned from this palace. On a sultry summer's night in the year 1328, they were banished from Mantua by an uprising. This uprising was incited by Linghi Gonzaga, so that he himself could seize power. The Gonzaga rule lasted for almost 600 years, and that afforded ample opportunity to build the Palazzo Ducale, a gigantic edifice covering 34,000 square meters. Also one of the most beautiful palaces in Italy, especially inside. This is only the facade from the 14th century. The Cathedral Sant'Andrea by Leon Battista Alberti and Luca Foncelli, built in 1472. The Rotonda San Lorenzo, which was built in 1082, is the oldest building in the town. You have to keep your eyes open and search for it a little, especially when the market is open. But right in the heart of town is a little museum which is dedicated to the great racing driver Tazio Nuvolari. Here they have gathered together everything which reminds one of him. The yellow pullover, his characteristic leather waistcoat, even his shoes. And then, of course, the trophies. Perhaps his most precious one, the cup from the 1930 Mille Miglia. A street has been named after him, and at the side of it, a memorial has been erected in his memory. They have not even forgotten his Amscot, the tortoise. Fans of Nuvolare, in Switzerland for example, have named entire racing associations after this tortoise. The reason why Italian bands play chronically out of tune will forever remain a puzzle, considering the musicality of this nation. Preparations for the arrival of the competitors. After his previous year's success, Mr. Schildbach always took part, and he was way out front. But it's difficult to repeat such a feat. Behind him, other highly voluminous Bentleys. The Bentley Speed 6 with the number 14 won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1930. The BMW Armada had arrived in one piece in Modena, and it was about to remain in this state until the finishing line. The course through Mantua. With the Castello San Giorgio in the background, a Bugatti T57, 3.3-liter 8-cylinder from 1934. And then finally, Brescia. The Argentinians Tavelli and Bollard on the 328 dashed past the finish line, which says nothing about their troop placing, however. The Germans Schildbach and Netzer are there too. Once again, they carted off several cups back to Berlin. With the 49, the 2.3-liter Alfa Monza, which Louis Chiron drove to third place in 1934. A 1954 Maserati 2-liter. The splendid Ferrari Testarossa 1958, winner of the World Championship. The ladies with the 7-liter Mercedes S have arrived too. Then, of course, a whole series of Alphas. No less than 61 were at the start. A 2.6-liter Monza was driven by the British actor Paul Grist.
I hope you had a nice time. How was it?
Fantastic. Very, very good. Wonderful weather and amazing people.
How many times did you participate now?
3. This is my third.
Third? And do you think that was worst 60 years anniversary, this one?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, last year was fantastic. They're all exactly the same. So many people coming out, you know.
And the car made it, yeah?
Oh.
Real going, yeah?
It knows its own way around.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
a lot. Okay, bye.
It's a pity they persisted in holding the awards ceremony in the courtyard of the Castello of Brescia, squeezing everyone into the indeed very beautiful, but hopelessly overfilled and pitch-dark town hall. One has to search for the competitors and celebrities in the throng of the Piazza della Loggia. The Contessa Maggia, for example, her husband was one of the founders of the Mille Miglia, or Prince Michael of Kent. Clay Regazzoni, who once again successfully covered the whole route with the Lancia Aurelia. Then there was a small post-race celebration in the castle courtyard of Count Gianno Mazzotto near Vicenza. The winner in 1950 and 1953 was also celebrating the publication of his book.
No, but I'm thinking about all the pictures of the...
Der eigentliche Grund, warum wir eigentlich hier sind bei Graf Marzotto, ist dieses Buch, La Ferrari alla Mille Miglia, das er geschrieben hat. Count Marzotto, what brought you to the idea to bring out this book?
Well, now, Mr. Bulgari had this idea to make the book, and he asked to me to make a kind of story of connection of all the Mille Miglia which came out after the war. I liked the idea because I spoke of Mille Miglia without rhetorics, I mean in a very spontaneous way. And, well, I like to write in a very simple way, and this is what is written in the book.
This time, the overall victory went to Maserati. Lined up for the group photo from right to left, the president of the Brescia Automobile Club, Mr. Calmonte and Mr. Simeonate in third place, female Formula One driver Maria Teresa de Filippis, and left the overall winners, father and son Marin, who were vigorously supported by the Formula One driver Alessandro Nannini.